Hey, welcome. It's week 5, and we're getting started and finishing up this first round of being able to put information architecture concepts toward our data or your data. And I hope this week was an eye opener. And I think there was a few surprises that were intended and maybe some that weren't. And I understand that going through and learning this controlled vocabulary, which is HTML5, is something pretty new, but that idea of a controlled vocabulary is extremely critical to the concept of information architecture. So while I'm not going to rehash the ideas that are in the book or in the module for this week or last week, I just wanted to give some overall moments that I think were maybe misunderstood and I could clarify, as well as going into next week when this project is going to be due. And the important part being that this actual effort that you're making right now creates information. So the surprise is actually most of your work, or the work of information architects, is actually read by other computers. It seems as though, and we will get to actual people looking at it, but that's going to be kind of a nice byproduct. If you've ever used Google or anything, you're going to understand that most of the way you find things are related to how well structured is that information internally. So these new tags, I don't believe, in my experience, really get the kind of attention from an information architecture standpoint that they deserve. And those that do it well reap huge benefits. So we're going to continue on that theme this week as we start to focus in on some very specific words and how important words and concepts are in order to create information, which is then understandable by other computers, which gets you traffic, which makes everything work. You can just create anything you want using however you like, but there's so much repetition that you're going to start to see, especially in your homework. I want to make sure you're starting off on the right doing this in the right way before you begin to get into how repetitive things can be. So I said this is a good template. I think one thing that many miss and aren't really grasping, and let me just go to that markup here to give you an example. So this first quote unquote record is using what I'm calling fake. These are fake tags. It is a little silly that I want you to use this tag, but if you've ever seen this before, I guess most people are familiar with, whoops. There you go. So everyone's kind of used to a little bit of this formal language. Let's see. Please cancel. Anyway, this beginning and end is just something to get used to. I'm not worried about how this renders in a browser. I'm not worried about anything like that. What I'm interested in is, what is this word? Now, in this first record, I'm just going off of my database. And what might have been hard was I used the words note. So I'm just changing that. So let's say one was, what color is this ingredient? I don't know. It's aqua. What is the dry down? These are aspects of perfume. You have a dry down, top note, base note, etc. So I changed those just because I used the word note. That might have confused many. What I look for in this very first record is just getting used to using the column name to mark up the data, which is this part. The important part is this part. Now, that being said, there's some difficulties in finding out the tags that would represent this in HTML. So I have an example here, which is the most important thing is this H2. I prefer not to use H1s, but that's me. That's because I prefer to use H1s on the page itself. Things about this page. This is just a piece, and this is actually a article. Is that a great tag to use? Sure, why not? You can use section, you can use a lot of tags. It really just has to do with your own internal concept. How do you get these and group these things? So in this case, I do have a list. Perhaps, and I really should think this through, that there might be a better way to represent these 4 pieces of data. So it was aqua, clean, must, tobacco, and right now I'm saying rich, roomy, ambering tobacco. Now, do I need to say top note, etc.? Maybe, and let's just put a tag on top note saying something like, well, maybe this is just a emphasis. It's not the best tag to put like this, but if you needed to explain what does this word mean, that is an actual challenge, by the way. This is an actual problem in information architecture, which is this pair called a label value pair. It's always going to be something that will be problematic in your designs later, because you can see here it gets very repetitious to say this over and over again. You'll see it over and over again here, for example, right? So I'm even saying top note is important. It's an H3 and tobacco is an H4. So there's no end at this point of variations, and there is no right or wrong answers. So just so you're clear going into the assignment and the things I'm looking for, please review the rubric, because I'm just looking for you using tags as meaningfully as you can and grouping things as meaning as you can. A grouping like a header should have a couple of things in it. Pictures, captions. I would love to know, how do you know what the picture is? Because remember, pictures are just pictures. So do they come with some kind of descriptors? And is that in your database, right? I don't have a description. Oh, I do. Actually, it's water. Cool. Okay, great. So this is actually not bad, right? So this, in this case, is not bad. So, and then, well, getting back to the assignment, I'm critiquing my own work here, but hopefully that's helpful. If you take this whole thing, you're going to actually cut and paste it 2 times, and you're going to change all of the actual data inside of it. That's going to let me understand a little bit more about what repeats and what does not, how much filler you need, such as headers are great, but they do take up room. There's a lot of decisions to be made here. And why? Well, the point being that another computer reading this might actually be able to figure out the importance of some of these things, and you are seeing it all the time, which is how does some, like if you put a link into Mural, it creates a preview and a description, and that's what we're getting to this week. So markup is due at the end of the week. You're going to submit the link to JS Fiddle, and let me just remind myself, which is this is updated on, what is this, 7/19. Call it V3. Cool. Make sure to save that. All right, excellent. Now let's get to week 5. So, nouns. Why do I call it nouns? Because these are words that are pretty much descriptors. They're very specific descriptors of the kind of content that you're using, and they are powerful descriptors because they're going to help that grouping. We've mentioned that more than once going forward, like how do you group things? So you might already have these grouping concepts. I think one perhaps easy one might be books. Books are fiction or nonfiction. Well, that's a pretty wide range from both sides. And if you go to fiction, it gets a little bit tricky because all you have is author name, which is, there's no doubt that people with a author name that starts with an A might get more book sales than those that start with a Z. That's not a great information architecture to go by name, to let you know. Whereas if you go to nonfiction and specifically thinking about things like libraries, they actually have that into a variety of topics and subjects, which are still quite wide since there are plenty of books that are being written about all sorts of things. There might not be a specific category, but rather than make it more complicated, I'm showing different concepts about how categorization has changed over the years. Introducing you to the great Linnaeus, who actually invented classification systems that we still use today, because without that controlled vocabulary, which is another part of this, the controlled vocabulary of HTML lets us all speak the same language and have similar meanings, even though the content could vary widely. Same thing true of any taxonomy. Taxonomies are about controlled vocabularies. So you might, again, have them already inherent in your data. If not, you're going to have to find and invent them. So this week is really adding to the very top of your page is the idea of keywords. And this is an exercise right now. What are these unique words? I'll let you know. They are a word, not 2 words. again, kind of tricky, right? Because if you can only use one word and you need to mean something, how do you make sure you mean, English language can be pretty imprecise. And then, looking at existing taxonomies for your content. So the actual addition to your work in the assignment might be minimal. I mean, I'm still looking for those words. You're not bound, I believe, in the rubric to add those, but I hope they're adding one more element to the words and the concepts. So you're still welcome, and I can certainly look and share anything about the assignment to get it ready. And hopefully that's a good overview of what's happening this week. And please let me know if there's any questions and anything I can help with. And please, as you can, share early and often. It's always great to be iterative in this class. Thank you.